Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Ozark, Season 4, Episode 10. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we have the whole situation with Marty in Mexico, and obviously him having to show a show of strength. As Navarro says, you basically have to be me, because any form of weakness, they'll basically rally together with rivals, and they will take you down and kill you. So, gathering up all the meetings of all the cartel people, the Navarro cartel people, and it's like, cool, I want to see your books and everything. And Navarro's planning on taking charge. Javi's dead. He's actually the one that ordered the hit on Javi. Javi, was a traitor to the cartel, so this had to happen. So, I'm going to check where everyone stands. I'm going to check everyone's books. I even love one of the people that, he's checking their books, and he talks to him like, oh, you basically could be more efficient doing things this way. It's like, Marty being Marty, and I love it. The guy's almost like, oh, wow, this guy's actually kind of good at what he's doing. But obviously, the one who can put up a little bit more resistance was Arturo, and I love that whole thing at the beginning. What was it? He's like, now I'm going to get Navarro's going to lead this whole thing. And he's like, oh, how do you know that? He's like, because I want it to happen. I wanted you guys to win the cartel war. Who won the cartel war? I want Navarro out of prison. I'm going to get Navarro out of prison. So it's like, when I want something, I'll make it happen. And you see that look on Arturo's face. I'm just like, okay, guy. Okay. I understand. So I thought that was fascinating. But later on, there's a hit that's put out on Navarro. But Navarro didn't go out like no punk. Granted, he got stabbed multiple times, bled out. But he made sure to take that SOB with him. And you could just see the guards just casually walking away, trying to pretend like none of that was happening. So, but it turns out Navarro's in a coma now. Cool. So it's literally all on Marty being like, WWOMD. What would Omar Navarro do? So he has to kind of handle this without Navarro's... because he also has to keep up with the pretense that Navarro survived it. He's not dead, but he's in a coma. But being in a coma makes him look weak, and it's like, right, you're not following his orders. You can't be following his orders because he's in a coma. So anyone who called the hit will look at it as weakness and use this as an opportunity to strike or even try to finish him off. So got to keep that super tight lid up. So the only people who know are people even people in the prison know he got stabbed, but they'll probably keep up the lie that he's in solitary confinement for his own protection. But Marty and Wendy are obviously the ones who know the truth. And even the person who hired the hit, which it seems like it's Arturo, I still, even in the grand scheme of the episode, I still don't think it's Arturo that did it. I think he just finally confessed to it just to get the torture to stop. But I don't think he's actually the one who actually called the hit. My money's on, what's the father's name? The priest? Him or Navarro's sister. She seems very copacetic about the fact is that her brother killed her son. But to be fair, she's like, I always knew it was going to come down to this because Javi was always ambitious. And so she also plays into the whole Javi and Arturo had issues that Javi always said that the moment he becomes head of the family, the first thing he'd get rid of is Arturo because he doesn't trust Arturo. So it turns out Arturo was cooking his books and was kind of stealing the money because he's usually the top earner, so he took what he thought he deserved. It's like, no, that doesn't fly in a cartel. Which is even worse because he beat up his bookie, but it was more so beating up his bookie to, pretend like, oh, I'm so shocked and disappointed that you would do this. The fact is he went so above and beyond made me go like, yeah, he's the one probably taking money. And he also did it just probably because on some level it's like, you stupid fuck. If you had I'm sure he's the one cooking the books and not his accountant, but it's still like, yeah, you stupid fuck. You're the reason why I got caught or something like that. Maybe not. But he also underestimated Marty. Marty's really good at this. Who knows if Navarro would have, because Navarro probably would have never looked at the books like that. But this is Marty's wheelhouse. This is where he shines through. So but I do love the inverse of where he was in season 3. Literally him and he is playing the Navarro role and Arturo is playing the him role, getting tortured, the heavy metal, and Omar was looking down from above at him, and now he's doing the same thing to Arturo, and I love that. And Marty's doing that on purpose, but also he's doing it with a little bit of more humanity to it because Navarro was trying to prove a point. You have Marty doing it out of the sense of, I need to see this through. The good and the bad. Like, if I look away, it's going to make me look weak. I have to show resilience. I've got to show that I won't back down from whatever decisions I make. I've got to show strength. But I think it's also like, right, I also have to wrestle and confront I have to stand here and watch the reality of what I'm giving these orders. Like, he probably could have walked away while the torture was happening, but he chose not to, because it's like, once again, both folds of, I need to be here for the sake of strength, but I also need to be here so that I remember what this is. He ends up talking to the priest, and it was interesting because there's the whole conversation about unconditional love, which Marty talks about. Unconditional love comes with its issues. That's almost like it's not the smart play, that love should come with some conditions, because unconditional love kind of could easily blindside you to something. And I think that kind of plays in part to Marty's upbringing. We've, tackled it a little bit back in season 3, some of that. So I'm sure a lot of that played a massive role in him being who he is now, and that way of thinking and his way of viewing things. Because obviously the priest is like, right, I am here, and I'm here where God needs me to be, and that is here in a cartel that, despite what these people have done, everyone deserves forgiveness, which Marty's not quite sure if that is the case. So he just doesn't know how to feel about everything. And it kind of lends itself a little bit into that whole Wendy conversation from last episode, of how he takes a lot of stuff. He makes him, and it kind of leans itself into the Arturo thing too, of he makes himself feel like shit. Like, he wants himself to feel bad. So it's like, I deserve to feel bad because of what I've done, and what I've been a part of, what I've ordered people to do, what I've been, so I thought that was interesting. Like I said, I still don't think Arturo did it, but we'll see. He confessed to it, but once again, torture typically doesn't work. More often than not, it's like, no, torture, people will say whatever they need you to say to you just to make sure that you stop. But maybe there's some truth to it. Like, because denying it would, because it's like, right, accepting it will get you a quick death. Denying it would just prolong the inevitable. So there's give and take on like why you would deny it, and then take on why you would deny it because it's not true, and then you would also deny it because it is true. So it's hard to say. Like I said, my money's still not on Arturo doing it, but if he ends up doing it, I'll be surprised. Like I said, my 2 likely suspects are, I guess Nelson could be, I just highly doubt it, but I'm leaning more towards Javi's mom, Navarro's sister, and the priest. So we'll have to wait and see on that front. But speaking of Nelson, that opening, I was like, oh wow, I didn't think we'd get this. We got Ben's perspective on that whole thing, and cause we only got the aftermath of it. We never got that scene, because the last scene we saw of Ben was him walking out at a restaurant looking for Wendy. That's the last time you see Ben. I think you might see Nelson walking up. That might be part of the scene. I don't remember. But getting this perspective on things, and the sad, heartbreaking thing of Ben being like, could you do me one thing? Could you tell Wendy that, it's not her fault, I forgive her? Because even at the end, he's like, also tell her, like, do you think she'd be proud of me? Like, that's so heartbreaking and twisted that he's like, no, like, but the fact is, I'm handling this with such grace. Wendy would be proud of me, right? He's like, despite me being the fuck up, she's the only person in this world who loved me wholeheartedly. And that despite everything, I'd apologize, but fuck up again and again. And now it's come down to this, but he's like, yeah, I'm taking it with grace. She'll be proud of me. You tell her that, right? Yeah, you'll tell her. And you're like, I won't lie to you. I fast forward a little bit, did I say? I watched this scene, but I still fast forward, because I won't lie to you, I knew what was going to happen, and I just didn't know when it was going to happen. And of course, Nelson is the type that's like, right, I'm going to have a tarp prepared. I'm going to make it happen in a place that I figured it was going to be a gunshot. I didn't figure it was going to be a stab wound or strangling. I think I'd handle that better. I can't handle gunshot like deaths, like executions like that. I can't. Because I get so nervous. That entire scene, I had butterflies in my stomach. I was like, I know the end result. I know Ben dies, but it's still just like the tension in my stomach. And like I said, I fast forward to kind of relieve some of the tension in those regards. I do it from time to time. I don't always talk about when I do it, but I figured I needed to, because I was like, I didn't want to see it, because I felt Ben's death was so heartbreaking last season, and I just didn't want to see that but I let the scene play out, but I put my hand up so because I'm further from the screen so I wouldn't have to see. I saw the subtitle once says gunshot, and then it hard cuts to the title card. And part of me wonders, like, well, it kind of comes full circle because Nelson's the one that ends up killing Arturo. So the question then becomes, is that not only foreshadowing Arturo's situation, but foreshadowing something related to the birds in the future? Now, who's going to be on the other end of that? Is it going to be Marty, Wendy? Is it going to be the entire family lined up for that? Questions like that. I could definitely see him being Marty, but I still could see in the realm of possibility of being the entire Bird family. I don't know. So there's all of that. Then back in the Ozarks, Wendy's trying to plead with Ruth. It's like, hey, work with us. It's like, why the fuck would I do that? He's like, you owe us. You basically killed the one person that could guarantee our out of all of this. It's like, well, to be fair, Wendy, you kind of stuck yourselves deeper and deeper in this. You definitely played a big role in diving your family deeper into it when Marty had an out, but we don't know if that out would have been an out, regardless of it all. But Ruth is like, right, just as much as I could help you, I could just as much fuck you, so I'm not, she's not going to help. So when he takes action, turns out Sheriff Guerra is gone. Ronnie's now acting sheriff, still deputy, but acting sheriff. So he's running things, and Wendy's kind of spinning things to be like, oh, I know about a crime that's coming up. Ruth might want to look into that. Obviously, you're trying to put yourself in position so that you get elected. You're trying to make it so like, hey, a local's in a position of acting sheriff before the actual election goes down. That way, things kind of sway more your way. Wendy's kind of being like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you do this, oh my God, the backing and support you'll get. So he's investigating Ruth. He's all up in her business, following her around, goes to the motel asking Sam questions, then interrogates Jonah. And I even love it. At first, Ronnie's like, wait, does your mom know you're here? Because he's like, right, your mom kind of put me in this position, so did she do that willingly knowing that you'd be here? Which begs the question, she almost seemed surprised later on when Nathan was like, yeah, that guy was questioning your son. And she's like, wait, he was? What were they talking about? It's like, you sit him on his wild, like, what'd you expect? I guess she thought like, oh, he'll talk to Ruth and it'll be good. It's like, of course he stopped by the motel. That's one of her businesses. Like, what did you expect, Wendy? Once again, your plans always drag other people into it. You dragged your son. It seems unwillingly, not unless you were lying in Nathan to being like, oh my God, what were they talking about? What could that have possibly been about? But even he was like, right, shouldn't you be more concerned about making sure your son's okay? Especially because he's like, wait, you don't know about that conversation, so Jonah didn't tell you? Huh, why didn't Jonah tell you? Like, obviously Nathan knows there's bad blood between Wendy and Jonah, but he hasn't really pushed it too much. He just kind of like, oh, is Jonah okay? With asking about the circumstances, but that's about it. So it's the back and forth between Wendy and Ruth and Ronnie saying like, oh, are you taking over Darlene? I don't know. God. You're taking over Darlene's operations or whatnot. She's like, no. So now she's got the cops following her, so she can't do her business. So it kind of screws up her deal with Shaw, just like Wendy wanted to kind of slow things down because it's all connected. They need Shaw on their side to also appease the cartel, but also because they needed capital to fund through the foundation so that they get other people's money so that they can have those higher ranking people on their side to get Omar Navarro off that list. So that he could get extradited back to Mexico, they could pay it off and get him out of jail. So it all kind of rides on this. So Ruth's refusal to back down is kind of severely fucking things up on their front. So, and Wendy's trying to pretend like everything's okay, even talking to Charlotte like, oh, that was your dad, he's fine. And Charlotte just looks at her and just go back to her book. It's like, no, Mom. Like, even saying later on, said it last episode and said it this episode, the only reason why Dad's in this situation is because he's doing it for you. And it's no like, oh, I love you too type of things. It's just kind of like, okay. And then like hang up, Wendy at one point is like, oh, what are you going to do about the whole Arturo thing? He's like, what can I do? And hangs up. And it's just kind of like, she's like, it kind of sucks that I am put you in a position where you have to be this person. You don't want to be this person, but I'm, it's all for the sake of our family, but it's still like, I am the one that asked you and kind of pushed you towards this, and you were super reluctant to do it, so. But Ruth turns to the one person she can, and that's Frank Jr., and he's willing to help out, and he's laughing, and she's like, what's so funny? He's like, nah, it's funny. I never thought you'd be a Darlene Snell wannabe. If anything, I thought you'd be a junior Marty Bird. And she's like, I'm neither one of them. It's like, you're definitely more Marty than Darlene, but I think you have certain Darlene aspects to you. You are kind of a little combination of the two. I still think she's more, I'd say probably 60-40, probably even more like, I was thinking more 725, but probably even it out a little bit more, probably 60-40, 40 Darlene, 60% Marty. I mean, Marty took you under his wing, and he became a mentor and kind of friend and father figure to you, so you have adopted a lot more after him. I mean, he taught you the business, taught you everything, so of course you probably would lean more Marty Bird than you would Darlene, but I think there are some aspects of Darlene you're kind of cut from the same cloth in that regard, so. But distracting Sheriff Runner, which I'm like, how stupid do you gotta be? She already knows you're following her. What makes you think she's gonna do whatever illicit business she's gonna do when she knows that you're already following her? She literally confronted you about it. So I thought that was stupid to think like, oh, like she's not gonna know that you're following her. She's got it, you know, it's like, I guess he thinks like, oh, because she's from the Ozark, like you know better. It's like, no, Ruth's a smart criminal. So Frank Jr. ended up getting the drug, the heroin and everything, but he's also going to get a slice of the pie. So, but the deal with Shaw is already set in stone. So Wendy's kind of stuck in that position of like, cool, that's screwed up. Also, I love the scene because it all connects, but I love the scene between Charlotte and Annalise, Nathan's girlfriend, where she's like, oh, what's up with that young man? It's like, oh yeah, his mom died because she got hit and died by a truck. Then also, he was engaged to a stripper, but he had a gambling issue, and so she ended up leaving him. So he's kind of all alone. She's like, I don't even know what's wrong with him now, but it's like, yeah, there's always something. Poor Sam. In fact, it was interesting, like, Ruth ended up showing up, but that's because Nathan told her, because it's like, right, you're someone that cared about Ben, and even she's like, oh, how messed up is this? We both know where Ben is, and the fact is you're dragging your kids into this and making them lie. How fucked up is that? Your dad's over there, but who gives, like, Wendy could care less about, she only cares about her dad because it's like, right, his appearance here complicates things and makes it harder, so they have to lean into this stuff even more. But I thought it was interesting that when it was all said and done at the end of the episode, I think it was at the end of the episode, Wendy, the little thing her and Jonah put together for Ben at the first half of the season, she knocked it over just because she was like, right, the BS of it all is just kind of like, no, like everything I'm doing is just trying to make myself forget and feel better. But I also appreciate her calling up Claire, because I didn't talk about it, but her and Jim got in contact, and Jim was kind of reluctant. She's like, yeah, I saw your husband get the shit beat out of him over. He's like, yeah, sorry about that. And it's like, yeah, you don't have to worry about Javi. He's like, why is that? He's dead. Omar Navarro killed him, which once again, like the only people who probably know the truth are Navarro, Wendy, Ruth, Marty, and Claire, as well as Jonah and Charlotte. They're the ones who know the truth about, yeah, Ruth's the one that pulled the trigger on him. So I'm curious, is Claire going to be an issue in that regard because she knows? That's why I was like, why are you really think it's, I guess, like I said, maybe she thinks they'll go after the birds first, and maybe she can appease the cartel by doing things her way. But I'm like, you know, you're in business with them. To be fair, it was with Javi. He's dead now, so it's fine, whatever. And Navarro wasn't really in power, but now he's going to be kind of put back in power. So I don't know how that changes the equation for Claire going forward. But once again, no one's going to be backing Wendy's play with this, because it's like, right, they're making sure they get paid first, like the money's there so they can put their money in. They want to make sure they're not, suffering FOMO. Nobody wants to miss out on a grand opportunity, but this whole Ruth and Claire thing is really bringing this whole thing to a halt. So until they can get this resolved, there's no getting Navarro transferred, and all the things Marty doing is setting the ground up work for his return and power play and stuff. It's kind of moot at this point until they resolve that situation. Maybe they will, but it's going to be tricky. We've also got Mel's continued investigation. He was talking to a cop, and he's ended up, we see that the last place we see him is he's backtracking all the way to the restaurant where Ben was, and that's going to bring up some questions that he's probably going to talk to Nathan about, because it's like, oh, when did Wendy say the last time she saw her brother? So we're going to look at the surveillance footage, find out Wendy was there with him and then left him alone. Then this guy took him, and also especially talking to that cop, that it's like, wait, he said that she said that Ben said, drug cartel boss was going to kill me, and it's like, wait, he was right? So she didn't know at that time. So now I'm sure Mel could easily bring this up to Nathan. Nathan then starts questioning the family about what the hell's going on, in particular Wendy. So it's definitely going to be really, really interesting to ultimately see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.